Before we meet our next winner, to tell us a little more about his remarkable contribution, please welcome award-winning journalist, presenter, campaigner, and, of course, Animal Heroes judge, Angela Rippon.
That's a theme tune.
Here comes.
Well, good evening, everybody, and what an amazing evening this is, a very special evening, and we're only halfway through it. There's so much more wonderful stuff to come this evening. But I think I have to say that for me, it's been an enormous pleasure once again to be a judge for these awards, and I think, as you've probably already gathered from what you've already seen and heard, that the decisions that we have to make are not just tough, but in many cases they are absolutely heartbreaking. But this next story is one that struck me particularly, because as a journalist and when I was a newsreader, I have always been indebted to the dedication and the courage of those heroic individuals who work behind the scenes to bring us the stories, to bring us the pictures and the footage that really does bring a news story to life. And the bravest of the brave are undoubtedly the undercover investigators, those who show incredible reserves of dogged determination and heroism to take their hidden cameras into some of the most dangerous places on earth so that they can expose the evil and the corruption that exists in this world to the full glare and the spotlight of truth. Sometimes I do wonder how we're able to call ourselves a civilized society when you think of the pain and the evil that we inflict, not just on other human beings, but also upon all of the creatures with whom we share this planet. There is so much animal cruelty that is hidden. It's taking place in the dark. It's in the hidden corners all over the world, as we've been hearing and reminded of today, in puppy farms, in abattoirs, in cattle sheds, in industrial milking barns, in unregulated zoos throughout the world, and those so-called animal tourist attractions, some scientific research laboratories, and the hideous cruelty of dog fighting, cockfighting, and badger baiting. And of course, if we don't know that it's going on, it's absolutely impossible for us to fight it. Which is why this next man's contribution over the last 20 years has been so incredibly important. It's not an exaggeration to say that he has risked his life to expose and shine a light into those dark corners, and more than that, he's given campaigners the evidence that they needed to take on the criminals and the wrongdoers and actually change the world. But for all of those 20 years, he has been anonymous. He's never been able to take credit for the work that he's done in case it stopped him from ever going undercover again. Well, I'm delighted to be able to say that tonight we can, in the best way possible, expose him. We can say his name. We can show you his face. Because this next film is about the truly heroic Rich Hardy.
Before we play the film, I just want to let you know that there is some graphic content which you may find unpleasant, but we really thought it was important for you to understand truly what Richard Hardy does.
Hi, I'm Rich Hardy, and I live here in Cornwall with 17 rescue animals and my lovely fiancée Pro. And I've been really, I guess, interested in animals since childhood. But it wasn't until the late 90s that I got involved in going undercover for animals. And I've been lobbying and campaigning for them, meeting lots of politicians, trying to change laws. And politicians were telling me, well, show me the evidence. And that kind of led me into this work as an undercover investigator for animals. And the thing about changing laws is that you need a lot of examples. It's not just a case of like one factory farm or, one fur trapper. A lot of my work was infiltrating, 6 or 7 fur trappers or 60 or 70 factory farms in 6 different countries. So there is a lot of danger involved. Car chases, there's been plenty of those in the Middle East. being chased through the streets of Manama City in Bahrain. I was posing as the owners of a big ship full of Australian sheep, and I met the real owners of the Australian sheep, and that's never a good moment. I got caught inside a reindeer slaughterhouse. Someone thought I was wearing a hidden camera, and I was. Started peeling down my shirt, undoing all the buttons, at which point he said, "Oh no, it's okay, I'm sorry. And if I'd taken one more button off, he would have seen the hidden camera underneath the shirt, and I probably would have been in a whole heap of trouble."
To get the kind of footage that he's got, Richie's had to go into horrible farms, hearing and seeing and smelling things that most of us would never wish to experience. And his courage, his bravery, and his ability to do whatever it takes to tell the truth about what's happening to animals.
He has worked on some of the most instrumental animal welfare laws we have. And we could have all the words that we want to describe a system, but in the end it comes back to that saying, a picture paints 1,000 words. And nothing is quite as haunting as seeing the eyes of an animal that just wants our help.
You know, some of the projects have led to, fairly significant victories for animals. New laws have taken place. The European Parliament is looking at banning rabbit factory farming, which I was involved in as an investigator. People that have gone to prison as a result of my investigations.
His work has, without doubt, helped to change public perceptions of how we treat animals. His coolness and courage under very difficult circumstances has been quite remarkable.
But I think over the years I'm sensing a change, and the tide is changing, and it's partly because what was previously hidden is being brought to the public's attention thanks to people like Rich and their undercover work that they make available to the press. I like I say, hopefully it's not overly optimistic. I feel times are changing for the better.
One of the things that I've always found challenging about these assignments is, saying goodbye to animals. I'm making up for it in a different way. I've chosen to start rescuing animals. Prue and I have got 17.
I don't have to worry anymore when he goes off on these trips. But what's really nice is knowing that he's finishing this work with this incredible body of evidence that is indisputable.
I'd like to say a heartfelt thank you to him on behalf of everyone at Animal Aid.
He honestly doesn't get what he's done. It's so amazing, and I'm so proud.
Well, he may not get what he's done, but I think we all do. Stepping out of the shadows to take center stage for once, please give it up for Rich Hardy.
Absolutely amazing. I know. Amazing. Do you know what? It blows my mind, the fact that we had to give a warning for that video that we were about to see, and we saw a fraction of what you see every day in your job. How do you cope with that when you come home at the end of a day?
I think coming home to the furry paws of my animals and my loved one, Prue. Animals are so special in our lives. I think everyone feels that tonight. But there are many animals that I think are perhaps less glamorous, the ones that we brought into our homes and houses. And I think it's those animals that I find really important to tell their stories. Like farm animals, locked up in factory farms, crates and cages, every day across the world. Like fur trappers, still trapping animals for fur, for clothing, which we just don't need anymore. Those kind of traditions are really built in and difficult to change, but I'm sensing now that the tide is turning, and we've seen it tonight. We've all enjoyed a plant-based menu tonight. Veganism is a great thing to try, and I'd urge everyone to give it a go if you can, and extend that compassion to all animals, because we can help save our planet. Look at little Greta. She's
over in North America at the moment, and what she's doing for the environment links back also to the animals. We're keeping animals on factory farms, which is also devastating the planet for the wildlife, where the forests are being cut down to make space for them. So, we do need to change, and I get a sense that that's going to happen.
Now, during the judging process, Angela made no secret of the fact that she was absolutely championing your cause. And what is it in particular about Rich and his story that absolutely took you?
I think it's because you showed such enormous courage when there were images that I think many of us in the audience probably would have turned away from. And as you've already said, how on earth do you find the courage to look at that? But unless there are people like you prepared to go and look and experience it and not give yourself away, because otherwise it would have all been for nothing, because you would have been found out, as you were with the reindeer farm. You would have been found out and none of that would have come to the public attention. And I just felt, as a journalist, and knowing many of my colleagues who have done things, for you to do that in those circumstances was just above and beyond anything that I think we had in any of our awards this year. And you were saying, how on earth do you manage to do it? What I want to know is, now that we've exposed you, now that we can see who you are and we know who you are, everything you've done for the last 20 years, you've done really anonymously. Are you now going to come into the spotlight yourself and work for better recognition, better understanding, and better kindness towards animals in the public eye, rather than doing it undercover?
Well, yeah, like you say, I've probably thrived on anonymity and going to dark places. I'm still getting adjusted to the lights a little bit now. But I think for me, maybe my time's done a little bit on this kind of work. There's so many great advocates now working for animals, and we have so much evidence which shows us what's going on behind hidden doors, and it's really down to us to make those choices. The food we eat, the clothes that we wear, the animals that we choose to avoid entertaining us. So it's easy decisions for us all to make. We just have to do it.
And do what you did, which is not turn away, but make it public.
Yeah, we have to be courageous, and now we know about everything. I think we can't not turn away anymore.
Well, like everybody who gave you a standing ovation, I'm in awe of what you've done, and you are so deserving of this award, Rick.
And Angela has also spoken very eloquently about how your work has driven activism and driven campaigns. So who better to give you your award than one of our most prominent campaigners, Chris Packham.
Well done.
When I was a child, one of my first heroes was Geoff Hurst, for obvious reasons. Then it was Admiral Lord Nelson, 1805, for obvious reasons. Then it was Neil Armstrong, for equally obvious reasons. And then it became David Attenborough, Sir David Attenborough. As an adult, I found it difficult to find new heroes, but about a month ago, I found Rich Hardy. He sent me an email, and he said, "I've written a book, Chris. Would you read it and think about writing the foreword?" I get many such offers. I undertake most of them, to be honest with you. I'm an avid reader. I like reading, I like to learn, I like to know. But I wasn't prepared for Rich's book. So I downloaded it, and then I started to read it. And I couldn't put it down. Not because of its remarkable literature. It's very well written. It's not F. Scott Fitzgerald or Thomas Hardy. It's very well written. It doesn't need to be F. Scott Fitzgerald or Thomas Hardy. It needs to be true and pragmatic and accurate. And I found it absolutely compelling, and all of the information that it contained. And I started on chapter 1, and I got to chapter 2 and 3, and at that point I thought I might pass it to my partner Charlotte, because I felt that she needed to read this book. My stepdaughter, the people around me needed to read this book. But I couldn't pass it on. I had to just finish it myself, because it was able to transport me to a place where I couldn't go, where we couldn't go, because we do not have Richard's bravery in physical and mental form. Now, the book is called Not As Nature Intended. and it's going to be published in the new year. It's not an easy read. I have people contacting me on social media. I sometimes retweet things and they say, I just can't look at it. And I write back to them, please look at it. Unless you understand the full and graphic nature of the horrors which are taking place behind closed doors, we won't want to smash down those doors and change it. And to have an ambassador such as Richard summon a lifetime of mental, psychological, and physical bravery to go through those doors and expose the things that he's done, then we would never have had any chance of changing things. And his work is not done. When you read that book, and I seriously compel you to read it, yes, you'll find the pages hard to turn. You will not want to go to the next one because you will have been exposed to some truly horrendous things. But it's packed full of the reasons why we have to change our ways. It's an extraordinary book. And for me, it's a very, very important book. Next year, Not As Nature Intended, Richard Hardy. And let me tell you one thing. Those letters are not big enough, hero. And when I finally closed the pages, do you know what my instantaneous reaction was? And I don't normally warm to meeting new people. It's not one of my sort of things, you know. Try to stay in the middle of the woods with my poodles. I wanted to stop everything that I was doing, and I wanted to go to wherever this man was in the world, and I wanted to shake his hand until my arm ached. Richard Hardy is a true animal hero. Thank you.